81 and a project cost of $56.7 million, this three-story brand new building is ready for the 2022-2023 school year.
The pride is just exuberating.
In Chile, who saw the news segment, and it just reiterates the incredible work of our first responders. And I also want to acknowledge Pepco, who did an outstanding job helping to reestablish not just electricity, the same
months before I'm going to finish my service on the council and see this bright, space, new space full of.
I just once again want to thank our first responders, and in particular Montgomery County Fire and Rescue, Montgomery County Police, our state police, and we did receive some support from neighboring jurisdictions as well. They acted quickly and in a way that was truly innovative and avoided what could have been an even more significant disaster. So kudos to all of them. That being said, we move on to our general business. And Madam Clerk, do we have any agenda changes or announcements?
Good morning, Council President, Council Vice President, Council members. There are no agenda changes to announce today, and the Council has not received any petitions to announce either. So thank you very much.
Thank you. We do have an action, which is an approval of the minutes from September 20th, October 11th, October 18th, and 27th, as well as the approval of closed session minutes from October's 3rd, 10th, and 25th. I see no changes, and so hearing no changes, those minutes are approved. We now move on to item number 2, which is a work session in action. This is an amendment to the FY 23 through 28 Capital Improvements Program and Special Appropriation number 2355 to the county government's FY 23 capital budget, Department of Transportation, Farm Women's Market Parking Garage Project number 502316 in the amount of $1,468,000. The source of funds is GO bonds and intergovernmental. We do have a joint committee recommendation for approval with amendments. I'll turn it over to the chairs of our Fed and T&E committee, whoever chaired that particular session. Councilmember Reamer.
All right, thank you so much. Really pleased to be able to have this before the body today. And there are many, many hands at work here who we spent a lot of time yesterday kind of walking through some of the history, and I think it's worth repeating a bit of that today. But what we're receiving is a set of appropriations that are designed to support a significant development project in downtown Bethesda, fulfilling a community vision of transforming parking lots to parks while adding new housing, creating great amenities, and significantly enhancing the success, the appeal, the livability of one of the county's signature downtowns. We are being asked to approve the use of GO bond funding, which may not have necessarily been in the initial concept here, but I think we all believe is a very appropriate use of funding and will help ensure the continued progress of not only this part of the county, but the whole county. And it's a regional amenity, it's a regional asset that would be created. This specific vision flows directly from the very challenging Bethesda downtown plan that the county council took up in 2016 and passed with very, very significant amount of community engagement and a lot of really intense policy work around transportation and housing and parks and affordable housing and so many dimensions of it. We have two of our private sector partners are here, EYA and Bernstein, and the town of Chevy Chase, Mayor Rush is here because they have been working very actively together with the county, with the Department of Transportation, with the Department of Parks, and many other important groups. Really want to give an important shout out here for Councilmember Friedson. Councilmember Friedson has taken the lead to help bring more resources to this project, working with state delegates to secure additional funding so that there is more, the project is more workable, more successful. And as a result, all these elements have come together. Appreciate the county executives' continued work on this and finalizing what is really an important step forward. So we have a set of funding proposals that will transform a parking lot into a spectacular public space. There will be park amenities, there will be retail, there will be housing, and it will be all within yards of the future Purple Line, the current Red Line on the Capitol Crescent Trail, and it will provide a terrific quality of life amenity for the thousands of new people who are living in Bethesda or will be soon as the development comes online there, and will generally fulfill the vision of a challenging master plan that certainly has bumps in the road. There's a lot going on in Bethesda, and I'm very confident that when this thing happens, a lot of folks are going to say, okay, now I really understand what was trying to be achieved here, and why this kind of approach to development that the county has embarked upon is the right approach. So with those prefatory comments, I can pass it back to you, Council President, and you can take the discussion from there. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Reamer, and Councilmember Friedson would like to make some comments as well.
Well, thank you for that. I won't go into the length of detail that I did yesterday, but I'm just really excited about this project. I want to acknowledge Councilmember Reamer for his work on this that started really in the Bethesda Downtown Plan and focus as well on my predecessor, Roger Berliner, who really put this at the forefront, made sure that the community's interest in having parks and open spaces, and specifically this project is a central part of the Bethesda Downtown Plan, could be realized. And that was the vision, which we wouldn't be here without that vision. But the execution of that vision has been possible by several people in the room, as were noted. Chris Conklin, who really came forward and was able to be creative and flexible, which is not always the case with parking lot districts, which we appreciate, but also in the financing structure. This is a very complicated deal in order to make this all work between the private sector and the multiple layers of the public sector. And so really appreciate for that, for the Parks Department, Director Riley, who's here, and the Parks Department really stepping up to make this work and make this happen, and especially our state, municipal, and private sector partners. It wouldn't be possible without the state funding that we were able to secure, and I want to acknowledge former chair of the county delegation, Mark Corman, Craig Zucker at the Capital Budget Committee, and Delegate Solomon, but also Barney Rush and Town of Chevy Chase. This would not be possible without the Town of Chevy Chase putting forward funding, but also Mayor Rush specifically making sure that we kept this train moving and that we kept the focus on how we were going to make the deal work. And I at one point, I think, jokingly referred to you as an honorary Assistant Chief Administrative Officer for the county, because it very much felt like you were playing that role, which I very much appreciate, and EYA and Bernstein as well. I just wanted to note the Farm Women's Market, and I might get this wrong exactly, but I believe it's the only historic purpose-built women's market in the state. This is an important historic asset that we have, and now having that asset not with a parking lot for cars, but a place for people and a park that is activated will make that history relevant for generations to come. I think it's a testament to the prior council. It's a testament to this current council, and I think a feather in the cap of those who are here serving their final meeting at this council with deep appreciation. I think it's a reminder that we approve master plans with lofty visions. They don't always come to fruition. It takes an incredible level of hard work and effort and partnership between the private and the public sector and between multiple layers of government. And when it works, it's something special, and this is something special, and this is an example of it working, and I think is a really wonderful way to send off colleagues here and to be able to acknowledge those who have served before, who aren't here today, like Roger Berliner, but who helped in many ways to make this moment possible. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you both. It feels appropriate to share this very quick story. A couple weeks ago, my mom went to a memorial at the Farm Women's Market because one of the longtime vendors passed away of a heart attack unexpectedly, and he and his family had been selling goods from their farm there for 2 generations. And it was a very touching gathering. My mom got very emotional talking about it. She's been buying her farm fresh eggs from this vendor since I was a little boy. And so this is a special place, and this project really honors his memory and that of everyone that has gone into making it such a special place. So it's a great project. Let's turn it over to Dr. Orland and Ms. Dunn to walk us through the packet.
Sure, we'll make this brief. These are 2 different items. The first item is the garage. The second item, item 3, is the park. The council staff has 4 recommended sets of changes. They're all, as I mentioned to the committee yesterday, the joint committees yesterday, more in the matter of crossing the T's and dotting the I's on this. Substantively, we totally agree with the project, of course. And the committees voted unanimously, I should point out. It was 5-0. First of all, on the Farm Women's Market parking garage, it's just a matter on the expenditure schedule to show that the utility undergrounding is part of the other spending in that PDF as opposed to separate, because it's going to be done by the developer, and typically on PDFs, when the work's being done by a developer or by an entity that's outside of the agency, it shows under the other category. As simple as that, plus adding a sentence in the fiscal note highlighting that the $715,000 being spent on this in that project for undergrounding is the contribution from that project to the undergrounding. The next 3 sets, I might as well just do this all together, has to do with the other project, the Parks project. The first one is to put parallel language in it as exists in the garage project, which would read, the following funding plan is contingent upon executed agreements with the developer and the town of Chevy Chase, as well as council approval of related property disposition actions. The next change has to show that, would show that the expenditure schedule for the undergrounding utilities again in the Parks project, instead of being just only in FY24, which is when the work's going to happen, it's spread out currently over 4 years. And this the PDF would change that to put it all in FY24 and make some other adjustments to make the totals by year come out the same. And then also adding a sentence which says that, or adding a note in the sentence having to do with the utilities, pointing out that the $715,000 is going to be spent in FY24. And also that the what is now showing as site improvements in utilities and construction is again under other, because it's going to be done by the developer, not by the county, or not by the Parks Department, I should say, in this case. And then finally, the PDF that came over in the appropriation request that came over from the Parks Department asked for part of the appropriation was for $100,000 a year for 6 years for Parks staff to supervise the project. Again, the practice we've always followed in the CIP is staff charges get appropriated every year, as opposed to for 6 years in a row. So the total appropriation would not be $9,432,000, but $8,932,000. Sorry, and then each year subsequently, the role would be the Parks Department would be asking for that extra $100,000 a year as those years come forward. The committee's agreed with all of these recommended changes. Again, they're all a matter of crossing T's and dotting I's, and with that, sort of completed our comments.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Orland. I see no other questions or comments from colleagues. We do have a joint committee recommendation, so we can go straight to a hand vote. All those in favor of the special appropriation for item number 2 in the amount of $1,468,000, please raise your hands. And that is unanimous. Which takes us to item number 3. And Dr. Orland just described it briefly, but I'll just read it for the record. This is a work session in action, an amendment to the FY23 through 28 capital improvements program and special appropriation number 23-52, and amendment to the county government's FY23 capital budget, Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission, Department of Parks, Bethesda Lots 1024, Parks number P872302, in the amount of $9,432,000. The source of funds is Bethesda Park Impact Payment State Aid Intergovernmental. Once again, this has a joint committee recommendation from both the Fed and T&E committee. Since this was essentially described just now, just yield to colleagues if they would like to make any other questions, have any other comments on this? No? All right, we have a joint committee recommendation. All those in favor of the appropriation of $9,432,000?
The appropriation would be $8,932,000.
So we need an amendment? Or
No, it was part of the committee's recommendation.
Okay.
So if you just approve the committee's recommendation, it'll be $8,932,000.
Okay, so we have a committee recommendation, joint committee recommendation for $8,432,000.
$8,942,000.
$8,942,000.
Sorry.
Got it. All those in favor of that special appropriation, please raise your hands. And that is once again unanimous. All right, that takes us on to item number 4. This is a work session in action on supplemental appropriation to the county government's FY23 capital budget and amendments to the FY23 through 28 capital improvements program in the amount of $9,500,000 for bus rapid transit, US 29 Phase 2. Source of funds is development impact tax and state aid. Transportation and Environment Committee recommends approval with amendments. I'll turn it over to the chair of the T&E Committee, Councilmember Hucker.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. So yesterday, the Transportation and Environment Committee held a work session on this item. This project, as a reminder, will ultimately finalize the construction of dedicated lanes for bus rapid transit along US 29 from the Burtonsville Park and Ride to the Silver Spring Transit Center. The Department of Transportation had been studying 2 alternatives for this. One that would create 1 or 2 dedicated lanes in the median, and the other to repurpose an existing lane in the peak traffic direction for buses and perhaps carpools and van pools. That was the managed lane option. In January 2021, almost 2 years ago, the T&E Committee asked DOT to come back to us with a more vigorous study of the median lane option. Yesterday, we received that briefing, so we could properly judge it against the managed lane option. The Council has included funds in the CIP toward the cost to conduct preliminary design of whichever alternative we select. After a long committee briefing by DOT and Planning, the committee unanimously recommends approval for the median lane option. We believe that doing so represents a more serious, more permanent investment in the future of a durable transit network, and by doing so would keep our commitments to East County and would better attract commercial investors to that corridor. The median lane alternative also creates the greatest difference in commute times between cars and the flash bus, so it creates the greatest incentive for choice riders to leave their cars at home or at the park and ride lots and ride the bus. So that's our recommendation. I'll pass it over to Dr. Orland to take us through the packet in any more detail and may have additional comments as well. Dr. Orland.
I'm not sure how much detail you want to go into because we weren't planning to have a PowerPoint today, but I could briefly explain what the 2 options are.
Sure.
If you like. The managed lane option that was studied would repurpose. First of all, both of them run only southbound in the morning and northbound in the evening rush, so it goes in the peak direction. In the case of the managed lane option, it would run on the shoulder of US 29 from Burtonsville down to Musgrove Road, and then from Musgrove Road down to Stewart Lane. It would run into a 4th lane, basically paving the inside shoulder, and it'd be a separate lane for buses and carpools and van pools. So that's why it's called a managed lane as opposed to strictly a bus lane. There would be no separation between that lane and the other lanes, strictly be a stripe. And then south of the New Hampshire Avenue interchange, there would be a lane taken away, basically repurposed lane, inside lane, from there down to Southwood Avenue just north of Four Corners. And then from Sligo Creek Parkway down to Silver Spring. Currently, as you know, there's 6 lanes, 4 lanes running southbound in the morning, 2 lanes north in the evening, and reversing that in the PM peak. I'm sorry, 4 lanes southbound in the morning and 2 lanes northbound in the morning, and then the evening is reversed. The inside lane southbound would be repurposed as a bus carpool lane. And then northbound, it would be much the same, except that in the section between Four Corners and and New Hampshire Avenue, the repurposed lane is only from Burnt Mills up to New Hampshire Avenue. Otherwise, it's a mirror image of the first. The median lane option would create a separate barrier-separated bus lane only for BRT, and it would run from Tech Road, a little further south than Musgrove, down to Stewart Lane, and then from south of New Hampshire Avenue down to Southwood Avenue in north of Four Corners, and then again from the Beltway south to Sligo Creek Parkway, and from Sligo Creek Parkway south to Silver Spring. It's the same as the managed lane option. In that case, there'd be, again, buses would only run southbound in the morning and northbound in the evening. There will be limited number of stops. There'll be a stop at stops in Silver Spring, but a stop at Four Corners in the median for both options, a stop at Burnt Mills in the median for both options, and stops further north as well. The analysis that was done by DOT actually showed that the managed lane option performed better in most metrics. It was better for carpools and van pools by a very wide margin, saving more than half the travel time for buses and carpools. It actually saves time for BRT. BRT runs faster on the managed lane than it does on the median option. And it's also faster, somewhat faster for those that are not in carpools, van pools, or BRT. In other words, single occupant vehicles, also commercial vehicles, and local ride-on. All of those would actually save time as well. In terms of non-auto driver mode share, which is in the people who are not driving, in Route 2040, the managed lane option performs better than the median option by a pretty significant difference. The main advantage of the median option is its enforceability. It's going to be, again, a barrier-separated lane so that scofflaws will be unable to get into it. In the case of the managed lane, again, it's only separated by a stripe, and although it can be enforced by cameras, not likely by police because there's no place to pull people over, and that's been successful in a lot of places, it's certainly not perfect. And it was pointed out by DOT and others, is that if there's non-recurring congestion on Route 29 for an accident or something like that, then that will tend to bollocks up the managed lane as well as the general use lanes, while the lane that is a median lane that's separated wouldn't be. So that's more or less where we are. Again, the planning board and DOT both support, and the executive support the median lane option, and then the civic associations in the area, some are in favor of the managed lane option, some are in favor of the median lane option. So that's pretty well divided on that.
Thanks, Dr. Rowan. That's really helpful. Right. Councilmember Hucker.
Well, I just wanted to, I'm glad you said it. Mr. Sartori is here from planning. We had the new chair as well yesterday, and the benefit of his experience, and planning was in favor of the median lane proposal, and Director Conklin's here. Thank you, Chris, for all of your, all 8 years I've spent on this committee. You and Joanna and your entire team spent so much time on this project. It's really great to see it come this far. It'll be great to see the construction actually occurring, and I'm really grateful for all your work on this. They recommended the median lane option as well, as did the county executive.
Thank you. Council Vice President Glass.
Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate the chair's description of the conversation, lengthy conversation, detailed conversation, and data-driven conversation, and the perspectives that have been shared with everybody. And while there was some information, some modeling and forecasting, that forecasting was very nearsighted. And it modeled out the next 3 or 4 years. But the reality is this project is a visionary project that will outlast all of us and is going to set the stage for East County and set the stage for future BRT throughout the entire community, throughout all of Montgomery County. And we need the best, most efficient system that will last for decades, so that as residential, commercial, businesses sprout up around Route 29, people have other options than driving. And that is what this is all about. And I'm glad we had a good conversation. I appreciate everybody's perspectives. But as we chart a course in Montgomery County that we all know we need, one where we think big and act accordingly, bus rapid transit with a dedicated median lane is the way to go. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Reamer.
Thank you. Yeah, I struggled with this one a little bit because it appears on paper that a managed lane strategy produces better results, but I really am convinced that it's a matter of the assumptions that you make, and at the end of the day, if we didn't build the dedicated guideway, I think we would be back at the table before too long, figuring out how to install it, because I'm just not convinced that the alternative approach would work that well. And I want to thank my colleagues on the committee. We were confronted with a choice a couple years ago about what kind of system we wanted to see installed there, and we insisted that we get a really thorough review of all of the alternatives, including the median proposal. And in fact, because of that insistence, we now have a median proposal before us, which is what we are recommending to the full body. So I think that the East County is going to, this will be more transformational for the East County to have a very solidly built, reliable transit system. It's the one the East County has needed for a long time. And I'm really optimistic that once this gets underway, it will lead to additional changes that we will be able to make to support the progress there. So I'm pleased to support this committee recommendation.
Thank you. I've got Councilmember Rice followed by Councilmember Friedson.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. President. And I just wanted to say that, as we wind down our last council session, looking back on projects like this are incredibly important. And although this isn't something new for us, it is nice to see that we're progressing forward. As a young man who grew up in an area not far from Burtonsville, right in Lay Hill Village, it represents us continuing to make sure that we're delivering things that we know are going to be beneficial to our community and make a difference in their lives each and every day. And so by having bus rapid transit and having something that is an effective way in which we can get folks from point A to point B and provide options for people is something that we should always continue to lead with, and that we have led with as a council for a very, very long time. And I just wanted to say thank you to the Fed and T&E committees for all of their great work. But then also, Dr. Orland, you've been on this for a very, very long time. In terms of making sure that in working with Director Conklin and before him with Director Rashi, who deserves credit as well, and continuing to talk about ways that we can deliver mass transit options for our folks, understanding that we're not going to have Metro going to all these different places and need to come up with alternative solutions. And we're doing that. And that's why this is so important. And while there is oftentimes debate about which one's more effective, whether it's going in the median or having dedicated lanes that are, and going in traffic, the reality is that at the end of the day, we're providing options for folks that make a difference in their lives. And that is what I think is the takeaway from this. It really is exciting. It's exciting for that region. Who's been stagnant with growth for a very long time, and so having projects like this will help when it comes to economic development. And so let's not lose sight of that as well. These are all things that are going to have huge impacts, I think, on the region that for so long has been kind of stagnant, and it's not by any means the lack of pushing by us, but I think that, again, those accoutrements that now will be there for individuals will certainly give a little bit of a push for some great things to happen in the 29 corridor area. So I'm very excited as what the future holds. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Friedson.
Thank you very much. I'm excited about this as well. I think it is another testament to colleagues at their final meeting. We have two colleagues who have at various points represented this community. There's been a major concerted effort to invest in this part of the county where for too long we were not investing. And that takes public commitment, and hopefully we are moving towards private commitments, significant private commitments, and I think this is just one of many examples, which I think is why the median alignment is important, because transit isn't just about transportation. It's about placemaking. It's about economic development. And the median alignment will help to facilitate all of the other priorities that this is a part of, but is not the only part of. And so I very much appreciate the work of the committee, appreciate the executive branch for their efforts, and look forward to supporting this, and very much am looking forward to seeing what this does for the future growth and opportunities, along with all of the other commitments that are being made to watch this corridor and the East County more broadly see the fruits of the significant amount of effort and labor that has taken place over the last many years. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Navarro.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yes, I would like to, join my colleagues with these extraordinary remarks. It's definitely awesome that this is on the agenda today. I think it's also, for me, another reminder of how important it is for those of us who have the honor to sit in these particular seats to understand context and history, and also understand that sometimes it does take a little while. But however long it takes, the important part is that, this has been done with a lot of deliberation and also with a lot of community input. And I will just quickly share, one anecdote. When I was representing that part of the county, meeting with a principal who spoke to me about how they had to give vouchers for taxis to parents who lived in Briggs Cheney off of Castle Boulevard because of the issues surrounding transportation, or folks who didn't have cars who just had a very difficult time getting to work because there was no accessible transit. And so this has been definitely an interesting story that has developed, and as some of my colleagues have said, definitely I see a picture emerging in the East County that is very exciting, and that really truly speaks to what that area of the county deserves. And also it speaks to our commitment collectively to economic development and to responses even to the rating agencies when they've asked, what are you doing in other parts of the county that have not seen the same kind of investment and potential is still untapped. So this is, again, one more piece of this puzzle, and just really excited that I get to raise my hand for this as well. Thank you.
Thanks. Great comments by all colleagues. I'll just add, too, that dedicated lanes, generally speaking, are consistent with Vision Zero goals. So that's another bonus here. All right, we have a committee recommendation. I see no other colleagues that have requested to speak, and so this is a hand vote. All those in favor of the committee recommendation, please raise your hands. And that is unanimous. And notice I didn't give the number this time. I just said committee recommendation. So very smooth. Yeah, very. Should have done that last time. All right, we move on to the next item on the agenda, which
Mr. President, I'm sorry, I need to clarify something. And I didn't make this clear yesterday, it just occurred to me. The recommendation for median option, my staff recommendation was to approve the appropriation and the concept that you just talked about, but the PDF currently has $11 million in it. And what I point out is that only $9.5 million is needed. That's what the executives asked for. So this would actually reduce the amount of money on the PDF to $9.5 million, freeing up another $1.5 million that could be used for other transportation projects. And I just want to make sure that's
Got it. Thank you, Dr. Rowland. That's why I was careful this time, and
No, it
that
wasn't
is
your
in the
fault. No, it
packet.
wasn't your fault. It was
the
mine.
committee recommendation. So I think we're good. We're good. So we've got it at 9.5 million as listed in the
Thank you.
packet. Thank you very much. All right, we move on to the next item on the agenda, which is legislative session day number 33. This is a call of bill for final reading for bill number 1322, Buildings Comprehensive Building Decarbonization. I want to make a couple of comments to sort of set some context for the conversation we're about to have, and then turn it over to Chairman Reamer to make his own comments. But this, of course, follows up on what I thought was a very productive work session 2 weeks ago, following up on the great work that had been done in the Fed committee. But as we noted then, and I'll note again now, I really want to thank Ms. Nadeau, who did some heavy lifting here. And since our work session just 2 weeks ago, worked diligently to follow up on a number of the very reasonable questions and concerns that had been raised during that work session, and has worked with my office to propose a series of amendments to address some of those concerns and just some of those practical realities of where we are in this process. So I just want to, again, publicly acknowledge Ms. Nadeau. I'll talk about my amendments in a little bit, but the way this will work is we will start with the amendments that were discussed in the Fed committee, and then after that, I will actually temporarily turn the gavel over to my colleague, Council Vice President Glass, so that he can shepherd us through while I introduce the amendments that I would like to move forward this afternoon as well. And I do want to acknowledge our utilities, our builders, and all of the advocates who have worked diligently on this issue, and appreciate the willingness for all of us to come together and take action on something that we all know is important, but we want to make sure is done in a manner that is responsible and acknowledges the reality on the ground. So with that, I'll turn it over to Chairman Reamer to talk about the Fed committee amendments, and then I'll transition over to myself after that.
Thank you. All right. Well, thank you, Council President Albornoz. I really appreciate your spending the time to focus in on this legislation and to work with stakeholders and to craft some amendments that you will put before the body today. And we will take those up shortly. As you said, the Council had a thorough discussion on this topic previously, and now we can walk through the amendments that were made at the committee. And I'll just, in the briefest way I can, say this is part of a big vision for how we can actually get the trends that are causing climate change under control. And that vision has several components, but the first component is generate enough clean energy to transform the electricity grid so that it's 100% clean. Second is plug everything into that clean electricity grid. So all buildings don't burn gas, they use clean electricity. All cars and vehicles don't burn gas, they use clean electricity. That powerful combination can get much of our emissions. It can eliminate much of our emissions over time. And in order for that to be possible, we have to have a more efficient building sector. You can't do it without a more efficient building sector, in addition to generation and other policies that are needed. And so we've been working towards building efficiency with the BEPS legislation that we previously passed, and this legislation addresses new construction and seeks to stop adding new fossil fuel burning equipment into buildings and instead having those buildings rely upon electricity, which can become completely clean over time. So the questions before us, the committee unanimously supported a few changes to the bill as introduced. The most significant, I think, really was not including renovations, which is a very challenging issue. When a house gets triggered to have to transform all of its existing systems to electric, when it may have a gas burning radiator, or gas burning furnace, that is an extremely difficult process to figure through, and the Department of Permitting System Services is not there yet, and they need some time. So we did not take action on that component of it, and we really focused the scope of this bill in a very clean way on new construction, new buildings, new commercial, new residential. We already know that new commercial is already substantially electric. In fact, our benchmarking legislation, which requires most buildings to report how they use electricity, shows that somewhere around 3/4 of commercial buildings already are all electric. So this is for our commercial sector, which is important for us to be competitive and to be a place where you can build an office building, at a competitive cost. We're confident that the private sector is on a path already to make this very feasible. For the residential sector, by removing the renovations and additions, we clarified and simplified the intent of the bill. Those issues can be taken up at a future time, and I'm quite confident that they will. But for now, we focused it in, and then the committee agreed to delay the timing by 1 year from which was proposed by the original legislation. So I'll turn it to the council staff. As the council president said, Ms. Nadeau did an amazing job with this bill, and we're really grateful for her work and the work of our executive branch teams and the community advocates and the private sector partners and everyone who's been part of this conversation. Ms. Nadeau.
Good morning, council members.
Wait a second. Try again. Try different ones.
Third time might be the charm. There you go. Yep.
Oh, wow. All right, so the First Amendment, as Councilmember described, was removing major renovations and additions. So the language is before you. This is at page 2 of the memo. So it strikes every mention of major renovations. It also deletes the definitions for addition and major structural components. So that's the First Amendment by the Fed Committee. Then the Fed Committee also added a few exemptions. So there were 2 committee work sessions. And after the first work session, the committee asked council staff to go through some of the other jurisdictions and find some other exemptions that different jurisdictions did, and decided to adopt some of those. So the first was buildings used to treat sewage or food waste. And then next, the bill originally had exempted commercial kitchens, and it used the zoning ordinance definition. But if you look at the zoning ordinance, there's commercial kitchens, but then there's also restaurants and restaurants with drive-throughs. But after recommendation from DPS, the Fed Committee recommends exempting only the cooking portion of restaurants and other types of commercial kitchens. The idea being you want to exempt the cooking portion, but some restaurants are very large, so you don't want to exempt like the dining rooms and the bathrooms and those other spaces. So this will cover the cooking facilities in a church, in a restaurant, anywhere where you are providing food. The way that the amendment does that is it's phrased as commercial kitchen equipment in an eating and drinking establishment that satisfies the requirements of Chapter 15. If you go to Chapter 15, you'll see eating and drinking establishments includes any food service facility. So that's the next Fed Amendment. The next 2 exemptions is after receiving letters from many of the agricultural groups, the Fed Committee decided to exempt farming and, in addition, farm alcohol production, so that those breweries that didn't fit under manufacturing and production could still be exempt if their use was listed as farm alcohol production. So those 2 agricultural type uses were also added by the Fed Committee. And the last Fed Committee amendment was the effective date. It was changed to 2025, but this is actually a great segue because I know Council President Albornoz has a different effective date amendment.
So I guess without objection, and again, we'll get to that friendly amendment soon, but without objection, I think colleagues support Fed Committee recommendations. Great. All right. I will tee this one up and then turn it over to Council Vice President Glass. Actually, I'm going to tee you to turn over the gavel to Council Vice President Glass now.
It's a quick tee up.
Yes.
I will now recognize Council President Albornoz.
Thank you. Yeah, that's right. So we scripted that. So again, we had a very productive work session a couple of weeks ago. And that was the first opportunity that the majority of my colleagues and I on the dais had to focus on this very important issue. And I, once again, want to credit the Fed Committee and the County Executive Branch for working diligently to craft legislation that gets us where we all agree we need to be. But as was noted, we have to make sure that we get there in a manner that is responsible and that make sure we don't create more problems than we're trying to solve at the end of the day. And so based on a number of follow-up items, I am proposing a series of amendments, starting with amendment number 1, which is the effective date. And I want to make a friendly amendment to what was noted in the packet. And so that I don't get myself in trouble, I'm going to turn this over to Ms. Nadeau to walk us through each of these, and I'll probably provide some color commentary as we go through to better explain some of the context. But Ms. Nadeau, I'll turn it over to you to describe this one. Oh, yes. Thank you.
Is there a second? Okay. Moved by Council President Albornoz, seconded by Councilmember Katz. Ms. Nadeau.
So the effective date, the way it's listed in your packet on pages 4 and 5, it's broken up into a couple small pieces. So first is changing the effective date to December 31st, 2026 to match the effective date in DC. We did receive some feedback that also asked to strike the phrase as part of the county's next building code adoption cycle after this act takes effect. Since that language is no longer necessary, since we have this deadline that's now further out, and that will allow DPS some flexibility that they'll have up until December 31st, 2026 to get those regulations in. So that is the first amendment on the, I'll call it the baseline effective date.
And there is a friendly amendment that I'd like to accept that was presented by Councilmember Reamer. If you could articulate that, Ms. Nadeau, or Mr. Reamer, whoever would like to.
If I could. So, thank you so much. Appreciate, again, Council President Albornoz for your work here. The friendly amendment that I would like to propose would retain the effective date of December 31st, 2026 for all non-exempt buildings, but then would somewhat accelerate from what had been the amendment previously described, so that the effective date of the end of the year 2027 would be for all residential that is more than four stories or more. So commercial would not be delayed additionally from the committee recommendation, and residential that's 3 stories or less would not be delayed from the committee recommendation. But residential that is greater than 4 stories or more, would be delayed by a year. And then the effective date for affordable housing in schools would also be the end of the year of 2027. And you know, I think this is a great bill, and I think if we were to amend it in this way, and if other jurisdictions were to follow our lead here and to enact electric building codes that are effective on a timeline like this, that would be a transformational step forward in our climate strategy. And I am convinced that the subsequent work that will be forthcoming around building codes and the International Green Building Code would not put us on a faster timeline, and that this is a very effective and reasonable outcome for our process here. So, you know, it will set a very clear outcome, and the private sector will then immediately begin to respond to this timeline. And 2027 is going to be here before we know it. So a friendly amendment that I hope the sponsor will accept will modify the proposal just a bit, and the outcome of it will be we're just a little bit slower than DC. DC has a very strong bill that has been celebrated, was put into place some time ago, more than a year ago, and they're still working through all of their issues about how to implement it, and ours would be just on a little bit of a slower timeline than theirs by 1 year. So in front of you, you have draft text, all-electric transition, which outlines those, what I've just described. So, Mr. Dude, is there anything I've not described in my comments here?
Nope, that sums it up accurately.
Great. So, the sponsor,
So Councilmember Reamer moves his amendment. Does the sponsor find it friendly?
I do.
Okay. For the record, Ms. Nadeau, could you read that amendment because it's not in the packet and so that everybody understands?
So first it'll be Section 2 effective date. The county executive must issue all electric building standards for new construction not later than December 31st, 2026. Then it will say Section 3, all electric transition. Section 8-14CB of this act must not apply to building permit applications submitted before December 31st, 2027 for 1, housing development projects where 50% or more of the dwelling units are moderately priced dwelling units as defined by Chapter 25A or a similar instrument with the federal, state, or local government for the creation or preservation of income-restricted or market-rate affordable housing. 2, public or private schools, or 3, residential buildings with 4 or more stories.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councilmember Chawanda.
Appreciate the discussion as the sole co-sponsor of the bill. I'm very happy that this is moving forward, and I'm happy not just for Councilmember Reamer, but for the environment and for our kids. And we did, I think, as Mr. Dew pointed out, we did delay the implementation by a year in committee to address some concerns. I think this proposed amendment to the amendment is how a decent compromise. Obviously, we want to move as quickly as we can, and I think that's something that I hope that the executive branch will continue to do and work with us to bring things over as they're ready. So I think it's a decent compromise. We want to send a strong message, passing this bill unanimously, that we need to move to all electrification. So if this helps us get there, I think it's something that is worth doing. So appreciate it.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay. All those in favor of this amendment signify by raising your hand. And that is unanimous. Okay. Council President?
All right, that takes us on to the second amendment. Ms. Nadeau.
So the next amendment is a report on the results of the PSC study. As discussed at the last work session, the Public Service Commission is doing a study on the capacity of the utility systems to implement some of these changes. And there was some concern from the council that we want to make sure that the next council reviews that study in conjunction with the regulations. So the proposed amendment is that the county executive must submit a report to the council regarding the system capacity needs and investment required for an all-electric building code and take into account the PSC study as well as any information received from the utility companies. Quick technical edit here at the bottom of page 5. It should say information provided by the utility companies, not the electric companies, so that we include the entire industry. And so that is the amendment that would allow a report to come in. It's drafted as no later than September 30th, 2024, and not before December 1st, 2023, to ensure that there's at least a couple months the executive reviews it, but also has a full year to send that report over.
I think Mr. Dew described it perfectly. I'd like to move that amendment forward.
Is there a second? Moved by Council President Albanaz, seconded by Councilmember Friedson. Any other discussion? All those in favor of that amendment? And that is unanimous. Council President?
Thank you. That takes us on to the third amendment. Ms. Nadeau.
So the next amendment is about alternative energy sources. This is to address the concern that there might be technology advances or upgrades in the future. And, oh, sorry.
Isn't it level 1? Is that sorry, keep going.
I was on page 6 of the memo, so I had the waiver next. So for this one, the idea, the way it's been described, is we don't want to put all our eggs in the electric basket. And so what this amendment does is it's going to create a waiver process. I will note here the Fed committee had discussed doing a code modification instead, which is something that DPS already does, where if you can't meet the building code, they basically give an allowance if you can do an alternative. So based on, I should note here, the county executive sent over a letter last night, and then addendum was posted this morning. And one of the recommendations in there was to use the word code modification instead of waiver, just so it's consistent with what DPS is doing. So the way the amendment would read is the regulations must include a code modification process, and the waiver must only be granted if the resulting building is carbon neutral or net zero, so that we make sure you're getting a waiver but still achieving the intent of the bill. And so that is the next amendment from Council President.
Thanks, Ms. Nadu. I'll just add briefly that let's hope that there are other options. Clearly, electrification is the best one at the moment, and we should head in that direction. But if there are other technologies that become available and achieve the same goal, we should have that option. And that is the premise by which I'm proposing this particular amendment, which I would now like to move, as Ms. Nadu described.
Is there a second? Moved by Council President Albornoz, seconded by Councilmember Friedson. Any discussion? All those in favor? And that is unanimous.
Thank you. Let's move on to the next one, which is method 1 versus method 2. Ms. Nadu.
So the bill, as it came out of Fed, was going to have these regulations approved by the council under method 2. So the difference here is method 2, the council has 60 days to act, although often takes extensions, and if they don't act, the regulation is just approved. So under method 1, the regulation cannot be approved unless the council actively approves it. So this would provide some additional oversight over the regulations. The county executive did express some concerns about this amendment. I did want to note here that whether it's option 1, whether it's method 1 or method 2, the county does still end up being the final say in that approval. For the most part, the council does not miss its method 2 deadlines. So I wanted to add that since that was discussed at length in the county executive letter.
Thanks, Mr. Nadu. And this also gives us the flexibility to further dissect within the overall regulations, looking at changes within, instead of the entire framework, components of it. And I think it does give another check and balance that will be helped with additional information from the PSC study and any other analysis that comes forward. So that's why we're proposing method 1 versus method 2. And with that, I'd like to move that as well.
Moved by Council President Albornoz, seconded by Councilmember Navarro. Any discussion? All those in favor? And that is unanimous.
And that takes us on to the next item. Ms. Nadu.
So next is 2 additional exemptions for gas fireplaces and outdoor grills. So first, the argument here is that gas-powered fireplaces are more efficient and burn cleaner than wood-burning fireplaces. So there's a preference for people to keep their gas fireplaces. And then for the gas-powered grills, the argument here is that a gas-powered outdoor grill will have fewer air pollutants than somebody using charcoal. I do want to note, charcoal is of course not the only alternative. You could also still use propane. That is an option as well, which would also be cleaner than charcoal. But the 2 amendments here are for gas-powered fireplaces and outdoor grills, I want to note. Again, DPS has raised some concerns about whether this would create a loophole, because now there will be a gas hookup, where previously under the bill the intent was to not have that hookup. So I did want to note that for the record, since that was also noted in the letter. The assumption here is that if DPS received that application, they would notice that there was no heat pump in the house, so hopefully that would close that loophole, but I did want to address that.
So understand the concern raised by DPS, but I do think that it is clear gas-powered fireplaces are an amenity that often homeowners seek, and they are more friendly to our environment than wood-burning fireplaces, as Ms. Nadu mentioned, and similar to outdoor grills. These are amenities that are popular among certain home builders and that homeowners are looking for. And so I still think that it adheres to the overall goal, which is the most important one, which is to eliminate our climate footprint here, but I think this is a reasonable approach and addresses some of the concerns that we raised, I think, reasonably by both residents and builders. So I'd like to move this amendment as well.
Moved by Council President Albornoz. Is there a second? Seconded by Councilmember Rice. Any discussion? Councilmember Reamer.
Well, I just want to make a few observations here. This is a legislative process, and it involves compromises and bringing people together and addressing issues. I thought about this one a lot, and I think let's start with the outdoor kitchen issue. How many people in this county have a gas grill? A lot of people. A whole lot of people. And we're not talking about saying you can't have a gas grill. So would this change mean that more people are cooking with gas in their grill outside? No. Because if you want to cook with gas, you have a perfectly easy option to just have a gas grill. And so this is not going to produce more gas consumption. Secondly, as far as gas fireplaces are concerned, the expense that would be involved in trying to switch out your already installed brand new, fully functional, very effective electric heating system with a gas system is probably like the biggest waste of money you could imagine doing as a homeowner. Because you're not going to get greater comfort. Your whole house has been designed around the new electric systems. This is new construction we're talking about. And so I just don't think that it is a loophole. I think it's a practical matter. I think homeowners, once you have purchased a new house that is an all-electric house, it would be extremely foolish to then retrofit your house back to a gas-fired furnace-type system. So I think it's very, very unlikely. And with that in mind, I think that for whatever limited use there may be for people who want to install a gas fireplace, keep in mind, as a home builder, you're going to be confronted with a pretty significant expense just for what is truly an aesthetic amenity of a gas fireplace. And the trend is really towards televisions and digital fireplaces. And I think a lot of these builders are going to say, hey, I'm not going to pay to run gas from the curb for a fireplace. A few will, but not that many. So it may be, I think it's going to be just an issue with some select teardowns, but for the most part, I don't believe this will result in significant proliferation of gas burning inside of homes. So it's I think it is a acceptable part of a overall compromise that is putting in place a very, very significant piece of legislation, and I'm certainly willing to support it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Jawando.
Thank you. Again, I think happy the bill's going to pass. We've supported all the compromise amendments. I can't support this one. It goes against the meaning and what we're trying to do here, and gives an exemption to people who are the wealthiest and able to, to do this. And I just think it's not good for racial equity and social justice reasons. It's not good for the intent of the bill. And for those reasons, I won't be supporting it. Thank you.
I'll chime in and say that I have concerns about this amendment as well. I share DPS's concerns. The gas-powered fireplaces and outdoor grills are amenities, and they're aesthetic amenities, essentially. And if the goal of this overall bill is to minimize or, quite frankly, eliminate some of these uses, then I can't justify doing it or allowing it just for an aesthetic amenity. So I'll vote against it as well. Any other comments? Okay, all those in support of this amendment? That is Councilmember Katz, Councilmember Reamer, Council President Albornoz, Councilmember Friedson, Councilmember Rice, and Councilmember Navarro. All those against? Councilmember Jawando, Councilmember Hucker, and myself. Okay. Any other amendments? Yes, Ms. Nadeau. Okay.
So the next amendment actually addresses a question that Councilmember Navarro had asked at our last work session about recommendations that allow the council to sort of evaluate the progress of decarbonization. So what this amendment does is it's going to require DPS to arrange for an annual audit. This is something that DC does as well, and they call it the Department of Buildings. So what they'll have to do is find a representative sample of new construction, and that audit will include the number of applications that have been submitted, the number of waivers granted, an analysis of alternative energy sources used, and that report will be due to the council starting June 1st, 2028, and then every year thereafter. So the council can see, are new technologies coming? Are we actually getting a lot of new construction? Is it time to add major renovations? All those questions will be answered because the council will continue to get updates. One thing I do want to note here is Councilmember Rice had asked for something to solve the problem about the rates that are going to be put on the community, especially for racial equity and social justice reasons. So another thing added to this audit is providing information on the current electric rates for consumers so we can see if those costs are becoming too exorbitant.
I'd like to move that amendment.
Amendment moved by Council President Albornoz, seconded by Councilmember Navarro. Any discussion? Not seeing any. Everybody in favor of this amendment, signify by raising your hand, and that is unanimous.
That is it. On the amendments, correct, Ms. Nadeau? Or I know more people want to speak, but just on the amendments. Yeah.
So that's it on the amendments. There were 3 other quick issues from the memo that I wanted to note, but I can, of course, let Councilmember speak first.
Great. Great. Oh, Councilmember Rima.
Maybe you were expressing that we would get to it anyway, but I think there's a restaurant. Did we cover all the restaurant issues?
Yes, so there was the restaurant issue where it's going to say commercial kitchen equipment instead of cooking appliances to make sure that it includes water heating systems as well as the actual cooking systems. So that's the restaurant one. Yes, so that was part of the Fed package. The next one that was addressed coming out of Fed was, in going through this, we've realized this is a very dense, complicated area, and there might be other systems and other uses where it's just not practical to apply all electric standards. So Fed had asked council staff to draft some language for an additional amendment. So it's on page 9 of the memo. And what this does is it says the regulations can include additional exemptions not listed if the all-electric standards can't be applied due to practical difficulty or undue hardship. So it gives DPS and the executive a little bit of flexibility if they find that additional exemptions are needed. And then, of course, the regulations would be method 1, so the council would have time to review those.
Is that a motion requirement? Ms.
That was
Bowman?
a council staff recommendation
Okay.
that Fed had asked for.
Okay.
I'll move it. It was based on the Fed recommendation, but we didn't have language at the time, so I'll move it.
Moved by Councilmember Friedson, seconded by Councilmember Duwando. Any discussion? Councilmember Rice?
Thank you. So I was going to bring this up later, but I think this is actually the appropriate time to do so. We have interagency on school construction that strictly mandates evaluations for new schools being built. And so we have our schools that are in there, and it's one of the things I hadn't brought up before, but in my conversations with the school system, just wanted to be sure that we were cognizant of that. And so I think that this is incredibly appropriate here because we're talking about state funding that actually would be clawed back if they deem that a project is not affordable or utilizing the best technology to make sure that we can build our schools affordably. We don't want to lose that revenue because then that means huge amounts of ramifications for our capital budget. So from that standpoint, I think that this is incredibly important. Obviously, our school system has always been looking at new and innovative ways to heat and cool our systems, geothermal and other kinds of new and innovative technologies. And so I think that the amendments before talking about additional technologies that come about will also be helpful. But I did just want to raise that point for my returning colleagues that this will be incredibly important also just to pay very close attention to. And so from that perspective, I'm very appreciative of this because I think that it will give us the ability to navigate those waters until the state comes up with similar standards to ensure that we can make sure our schools continue to go off without a hitch. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Rice. All right, we've got a motion and a second for this council staff recommendation. No other comments. All those in favor, will you please raise your hands? And that is unanimous. Mr. Dew, was there anything else? Because I've got a couple colleagues that wanted to speak, but
Okay.
Before getting to them, any other
So the
substantive
next
matters?
two things to note, I'll do them both at once. One, in addition to addressing the issue about rates and the cost to consumers, one recommendation that had been discussed with Councilmember Rice is asking DEP and DPS to post information on their website about the different state and federal programs that exist that can provide some relief to consumers who are making that choice. That's not an amendment, just something to note that the council could ask the agencies for. And then second, the utility companies had raised concerns about our permitting and approval processes and had asked for just some way to make sure that in the future, if we need additional bills and ZTAs to sort of expedite the process that the utility companies need to do their infrastructure siting, that's something the council keeps on their radar as well.
I think that's an important point, and we built in check-in points throughout this process, and so we can utilize those to talk about that. All right, thank you. I've got Councilmember Katz, followed by Councilmember Hucker.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. And first off, thank you to Ms. Nadeau and to the Fed Committee for getting us to the spot where we needed to be getting. And you, Mr. President, really did, and Councilmember Reamer, really did a remarkable job of walking the line to make certain that we were going to get great legislation that was actually going to make a difference and not hurt anything that we were trying to do. This is an extremely important piece of legislation. And from the work session, I guess was last meeting, 2 weeks ago, seems like forever ago at this point, we all started to hear about the concerns from the industry, from PEPCO and others, and I want to publicly thank PEPCO as well for not only for their activity on Sunday night, but for prior to that, so that you could have you could redo the grid, you could change things around. And I always tell people I'm the least handy person you've ever met, but thank goodness you aren't. So we appreciated everything that was done. But the timing was such a concern to me and what it does to the grid, because the grid does not work on a county by county or Washington, D.C. Area. It works on a regional basis, and we needed to make certain that what we were doing, what was going to be done, would be done with that in mind. This, I believe, sends the right message with flexibility that gets us to where we need to be. It puts everyone on notice that we need to get there, and we need to work together with our partners from every area to get us to the better place. And I think this will do it. And if it doesn't, with our flexibility that you, Mr. President, and others built into this, we will then have the ability to move it so that we can get to the better place. So with that, I just want to congratulate and thank all involved, because this one was not easy, but you all made it appear at the end, at the day, that it was easier than I know that you had worked on. So with that, thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you. I've got Councilmember Hucker, followed by Councilmember Rice, and then Councilmember Friedson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll be brief, but I just think this is great that we're passing this in the last meeting of this council. This council's made an unprecedented commitment to dealing with our climate emergency. It was the last council that declared a climate emergency at the end of that term, but it was this council that funded the Climate Action Plan, that passed benchmarking legislation and BEPS legislation and green construction legislation to fund all kinds of upgrades in the future and to really take our Climate Action Plan really seriously. And this is a great bookend, I think, to the end of the term. So congratulations to Councilmember Reamer and Joando and everybody involved, all the advocates that have really held our feet to the fire, I think, for the last 4 years. It's been really nice to see the progress we've been able to make steadily. We have a long way to go, but it's great to work in such a supportive environment. And I thought I had co-sponsored the bill earlier, but I'd like to still co-sponsor the bill before we vote. Thank you.
Got it. Councilmember Rice, followed by Councilmember Friedson.
Well, thank you very much. And I, too, am excited about the prospects of this bill. I just want to remind us, as we talked about and discussed before, and I want to echo the words of our council member for a day, Wande, who talked about the affordability, but then also about access. While we are focusing on new construction, the reality is that many people are living in buildings that continue to suffer from lack of environmental justice. And it will be important for us to make sure that as we continue through this onboarding process of electrification, that access is provided to those in our community who are of lower socioeconomic status and who are in existing buildings. We will need to find a way to make sure that as we look for something that is more positive for our community, that it is equitable and accessible for all of our residents. And so that is a charge that I know the future council will continue to take up, along with the community advocates who I see nodding, who I know understand that this is incredibly important for us. If we are truly to achieve our goals, it is not just for those who can afford it. It is for everyone. And so from that standpoint, we still have some work to do, and this is an important stepping stone in getting us to that place. Ultimately, we would like to see something that's consistent, as we always have, with the state stepping up and leading the way to help, so that local jurisdictions don't have to bear the brunt of trying to figure out how to make this equitable for all of our residents, as this is something that should be equitable across the state of Maryland, and then having Maryland be the shining example of what this nation and then the world can do when it comes to electrification. So I really want to thank the colleagues who have really worked with us in our energy providers, who understand what it is that we're trying to do and who agree that it is a positive goal for us to try and get to a better place. There's no one who's arguing about that, and that is a beautiful thing. That's a great place to come from. And so I think that together, continuing to make sure that we work with the great legacy that my colleague, Councilmember Navarro, led us in terms of racial equity and social justice, that we never forget in every single thing that we do, that we have to make sure that's a key tenet and component of how we move forward with all of our legislation and policy. And so lastly, I want to thank you, Ms. Nadeau, for continuing to make sure that those are issues that continue to be at the forefront and were not forgotten, that they were not just mentioned at a meeting and then lost, to be taken up by another person, that you actually made sure that those were front and center. That is incredibly important. And so I really think that we find ourselves in a really good place, a great starting point, but certainly more work to come when it comes to really truly achieving our goals, which is that everyone has access to a more robust, environmentally sustainable future. So thank you.
Thank you. I've got Councilmember Friedson, followed by Councilmember Reamer, and then Councilmember Navarro. Councilmember Friedson.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. I am pleased that we're at this point. I think that this bill sends a powerful statement and is a positive step forward in meeting our climate goals. I also think that it reflects the type of collaboration and coordination that is needed to make big changes. This has not been an easy process. I want to credit the Fed Committee Chair, Chairman Reamer, and the Council President for your work here. I think fitting that this is at your last meeting as Council President for the year and last meeting on the Council and as the Planning, Housing, and Economic Development Committee Chair, that we're getting this done and making a big change happen. It is, as Councilmember Hucker noted, just the latest and the final act of many acts that this council has taken. The Green Buildings Now Act, the largest individual commitment in climate that this or any council and that this county has taken in history, that Councilmember Hucker and I worked on, that this council unanimously approved, the Green Energy Tax Credit program that Councilmember Reamer and I worked together, that this council unanimously approved. Those were both really collaborative efforts with the not just colleagues on the council, but the executive branch and key stakeholders in the community. And I think this bill in the end was a real collaborative effort with advocates and with industry and with colleagues, figuring out how we could move this forward and get something significant done before this council ends its term. So a credit to everyone for that. I think this is the beginning of the conversation about the grid. Ultimately, we need a greener grid, and we have started that conversation in a very public and very substantive way, working collaboratively with the industry, with our utilities, and we all recognize that for this to make the impact that we need it to make, that we want it to make, that a sustainable future requires, we need to have the type of grid that is electric. And that doesn't burn fossil fuels nearly at the extent that it is now. We know that there's a commitment there. We'll continue to push and urge and work collaboratively with our partners in the utilities and in the private sector, and also with our state partners. We need the PSC, we need our state partners to work together with us, and we have to continue the type of coordination and collaboration that I think was reflected in the deliberation over this legislation. I think ultimately will be required if we actually want to make the type of impact that we've talked about here, that we've desired here. So a major, powerful statement, a positive step forward to meeting our ambitious climate goals, and certainly more work to do as these regs are developed. As this council has to, or the next council, excuse me, will have to take them up, and as we continue to work with our industry and advocacy partners and state colleagues in order to get it done. So thank you for that, Mr. President.
Thank you. I've got Councilmember Reamer, followed by Councilmember Navarro, and then Council Vice President Glass. Councilmember Reamer.
All right. Well, thank you. I appreciate the colleagues, my colleagues very much, and the comments that they've made. And as has been said, this is really significant legislation. It aligns to a growing, what we hope is a growing regional strategy. The timing is really virtually the same as DC. And that's important. You know, it's important to us. It's important to be part of something that is building and growing. I wanted to just continue a little bit on the thread that Councilmember Rice raised, which I think is really important, which is this is only addressing new construction, and there are so many people living in housing that has harmful health impacts from outdated equipment that is creating emissions inside the home. And there's been some reference to the Green Bank legislation that was passed, creating a stable financial resource for our Green Bank to lend money to programs, including a requirement in there that it is for only renewable energy sources. And we're going to need to really utilize that resource to help existing affordable communities make the transition to all electric. But there are thousands of children in this county who have asthma today who would not have it if they were not living in a building that was creating harmful emissions inside their homes. And we need to tackle that, and we've got to put the effort into that in the coming years. And the BEPS legislation that we passed is part of that, and the Green Bank is part of that, but it's a growing challenge that I think is being recognized more and more. So at least now we know that new housing will not contribute to that challenge in the future. And again, with the amendments that we've passed today, our legislation roughly aligns to DC, and it's a very, very strong bill. I want to thank my first co-sponsor, Councilmember Jawando. He was, his co-sponsorship stood out, and I'm really grateful for it. And I want to thank Councilmember Friedson, his support at the committee. We have two colleagues at the committee who, while often having divergent views on various issues, agreed. And I think without their support, we would not have been able to make this happen. And again, I want to thank Councilmember Friedson for being there on this bill, and finally Councilmember Albornoz for your focused work here and bringing us to a conclusion where we are all together. And that's when a council president is doing the job as best it can be done. We achieve consensus on really challenging issues, and we're hearing that from the council today. So I am grateful for that. I think it's going to strengthen this push regionally, nationally, and contribute to the success of what we're doing here today. So thank you to colleagues very much for your support.
Thank you. I've got Councilmember Navarro, followed by Council Vice President Glass.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, yes, a lot of appreciation to go around. I think the Fed committee did so much work on this, and you, Mr. President, really brought it home. I'm glad that we're taking this vote today and not sort of waited until the next council, because this is a very important issue. I see this as a transformational paradigm shift with a roadmap, and that is important, because it's not enough to just make pronouncements or just decide to do something and just kind of leave it at that, and then you find yourself trying to implement and not succeed. And so to me, this attempts to have a roadmap that also tries to align it with our region, and that is also critical. But I think I also want to make sure I thank the advocates and also our energy providers. This is really an important day. I mean, this is coming together with folks who oftentimes have not been on the same side to recognize that this is one more very important tool and step forward. And as I said earlier, a major paradigm shift for our community. Fortunately, we do have our Racial Equity and Social Justice Act that has already been incorporated into many of the decisions that we have made before, whether it's the Green Bank or any other legislation since 2019 when we passed it at the end. And I think that will be another tool to evaluate how this particular effort moves forward and how it does involve everyone and avoids perpetuating issues of environmental injustice. And so I feel really good about this moment. And again, just thank everyone who was so committed to getting this through. I think that we can't just sit back and pretend that climate change is not a thing. Every single day we are trying to mitigate it and try to adapt, and there's no time like right now to make sure that we're putting in place significant efforts like this one. So thank you, Councilmember Reamer, for leading the charge, and the entire Fed committee and Council President for getting us here.
Thank you. Council Vice President Glass.
Thank you, Mr. President. I also just want to extend my thanks to Councilmember Raymer for introducing this, and glad to see that it is being approved on this final session, right? A long journey, but just like the bill itself, there's been a lot of push and pull, and I think that's really what our role in government is to do. It's to continue pushing industry to do what is necessary, and in this case it is greening our environment, greening our grid, greening our infrastructure, because there's no other choice. We know that 52% of carbon emissions in Montgomery County come from our building sector, and so with the passage of this, we're going to start bending that curve, just like governments across this country have implemented fuel efficiency standards to push the automobile industry to do the right thing for our public health and for our climate. This is in the same vein of government doing good by doing what's right. And there's a lot more that we have to do. The next council, as has been noted, will continue doing more, making sure that we protect our residents, protect our community, and protect our planet. But this is just one more thing, and I think following up on the conversation with bus rapid transit, where we've made investments there as well, recognizing that 42% of our carbon emissions in the county come from transportation. So I think it's really been a good day for the environment here. And I think it's a great way to end this council session. I yield back.
Thank you. Right. So I don't see any other questions or comments from colleagues. Can I get a motion to move action on this legislation as amended?
Let's approve the bill as amended.
All right, Councilmember, seconded by Councilmember Jawando, and this is a roll call vote.
Mr. Katz?
Yes.
Mr. Katz votes yes. Mr. Jawando?
Yes.
Mr. Jawando votes yes. Mr. Reamer?
Yes.
Mr. Reamer votes yes. Mr. Hucker?
Yes.
Mr. Hucker votes yes. Ms. Navarro?
Yes.
Ms. Navarro votes yes. Mr. Rice?
Yes.
Mr. Rice votes yes. Mr. Friedson?
Yes.
Mr. Friedson votes yes. Mr. Glass?
Yes.
Mr. Glass votes yes. And Mr. Albornoz?
Yes.
Mr. Albornoz votes yes.
All right, let the record show that passes unanimously. All right, that takes us on to the next item on the agenda, colleagues, which is approval of our consent calendar. Can I get a motion to accept our consent calendar? Moved by Councilmember Rice, seconded by Councilmember Friedson. Is there any discussion regarding the consent calendar? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor of the consent calendar, please raise your hands. And that is unanimous. All right, so that takes us to the end of our morning session today. We will now adjourn to our afternoon session, which will include some public hearings and action, and then a very important commemoration of our outgoing colleagues. With that, we are adjourned. Thank you.